He was never just an actor playing a role. Jonathan Rumi became Jesus for millions. But now, that powerful, sacred journey is coming to an end. Yes, Jonathan Rumi has to leave The Chosen. And it's not just a creative decision, something much deeper, more emotional, and more painful than anyone expected. This isn't just the story of an actor finishing a show. It's the unraveling of a connection that reshaped faith-based storytelling forever. And as we head into season 5, the signs are everywhere. The emotional weight, the personal toll, the final act of a man who gave everything to portray the Son of God. Jonathan's departure will change everything. And fans aren't ready. Jonathan. Rumi's time on The Chosen has never been just another acting gig. From the moment he first appeared on screen as Jesus, something shifted not just for the audience, but for him as a person. Before The Chosen, Jonathan had spent years in Hollywood, working on small parts, struggling to find his place in the industry, but when Dallas Jenkins cast him as Jesus, everything changed. Suddenly, he wasn't just acting, he was stepping into the most emotionally, spiritually, and mentally demanding role imaginable. And with each season, the weight of that responsibility has only grown heavier. Season after season, we watched him carry the burden of Christ's compassion, pain, and sacrifice. But behind the scenes, that burden became more than just a role. It became a deep emotional toll that Jonathan himself could no longer ignore. He's spoken in interviews candidly and often emotionally about how difficult this journey has been, not just as an actor, but as a believer. Playing Jesus means opening your heart to the most vulnerable, painful parts of humanity. It means feeling betrayal, loss, heartbreak, and doing it all with grace. That's not easy. And now, as the show moves into season 5, with the crucifixion arc looming closer, the challenge becomes almost unbearable. Dallas Jenkins himself has hinted that this season will be the most emotionally devastating yet. Jesus' arrest, Judas's betrayal, the crucifixion, these are not just dramatic moments, they are emotionally charged events that will push Jonathan to his absolute limit. The spiritual weight of playing the Son of God in his final days is unlike anything the show has ever attempted. And it might just be too much for Jonathan to carry anymore. Dallas Jenkins confirmed in a recent live stream that Jonathan's time on the show is, in fact, limited. His words weren't dramatic, but they didn't have to be. With calm clarity, Jenkins explained that once the physical story of Jesus ends, Jonathan will no longer appear in future live-action productions. That means no spin-offs, no extended stories, no return cameos. Jonathan's role in the live-action universe ends with the original series. Yes, he'll continue voicing Jesus in the animated Chosen Adventures project, but that's it. His physical presence, his face, his eyes, his voice in the most iconic scenes that will be gone. And when that happens, The Chosen won't ever feel the same. Fans are already reacting with heartbreak. Because Jonathan Rumi didn't just act the role of Jesus, he brought him to life in a way that felt real, raw, and deeply personal. Many people said they reconnected with their faith through his performance. Others said they saw Jesus not just as a distant divine figure, but as someone close, someone human. That emotional bond between actor, character, and audience is rare. And now, it's being tested like never before. But why does he have to leave? The answer isn't simple. It's layered. Yes, part of it is creative. The story of Jesus on earth ends with the crucifixion and resurrection. But there's something deeper happening. Jonathan has admitted that this role has taken a huge toll on his mental health. Imagine having to immerse yourself day after day into scenes of sorrow, pain, betrayal, and sacrifice. Imagine carrying the emotional weight of the most significant figure in human history. It's not just draining, it's overwhelming. And Jonathan, being the deeply spiritual person he is, doesn't take that responsibility lightly. He wants to honor it, to do it justice. And that means knowing when it's time to step back. What makes this even more powerful is the timing. As season 5 begins filming, the show is heading straight into the darkest moments of Jesus' life. And Jonathan is expected to bring all of that raw emotion to the screen. The arrest, the denial, the silence before Pilate, the crucifixion itself, these scenes demand everything from him. His voice, his face, his soul, and he's willing to give it. But only for a little longer. There's something haunting about watching someone give everything to a role that's destined to end in tragedy. Jonathan's performance has always been about vulnerability, gentleness, and strength in suffering. And now, those same qualities are mirrored in his real-life struggle. He's not just stepping away because the story ends. He's stepping away because his own emotional and spiritual health depends on it. The departure won't happen all at once. He still has 2 more seasons to complete Season 5 and Season 6. But the countdown has begun. And knowing that changes everything. It adds a new weight to every scene, every moment, every miracle he performs. We're not just watching Jesus' story unfold, we're watching Jonathan's goodbye take shape. And the truth is, no one else could have done what Jonathan did. He made Jesus feel real, human, kind, strong, forgiving, and most of all relatable. His eyes carried centuries of pain and peace. His voice calmed storms, on screen and in our hearts. And when he leaves, he'll leave behind not just a character, but a legacy. Are we ready to let go? As The Chosen dives deeper into the story of Jesus' final days, Jonathan Rumi is being asked to do something that very few actors have ever attempted. He must portray a man who is both fully human and fully divine. As that man is betrayed, arrested, tortured, and crucified. These aren't just dramatic plot points, they're sacred, emotional, soul-crushing events. And while audiences may feel a surge of heartbreak watching those scenes, Jonathan has to live them, over and over again. For days and weeks on set, he has to weep as Jesus weeps, suffer as Jesus suffers, and carry the weight of humanity's pain not just on screen, but inside his own heart. And that's where the breaking point begins to reveal itself. Jonathan has always approached the role of Jesus with humility and reverence. He's never treated it like a performance. From the very beginning, he's spoken about how he prays before scenes, how he fasts, how he meditates on scripture. To him, this isn't just storytelling, it's a spiritual calling. And yet, that level of emotional and spiritual immersion comes with a cost. In interviews, Jonathan has described how scenes of betrayal or suffering leave him drained, broken, and sometimes shaken for days. He's admitted to feeling a heaviness that follows him even after the cameras stop rolling. Because how can you just walk away from embodying that much pain? Season 5 is expected to be the darkest chapter yet in The Chosen. The betrayal by Judas, the abandonment by Peter, the mockery, the beatings, the crown of thorns. This is the season where Jesus stops being the miracle worker and becomes the sacrifice. And for Jonathan, this means going deeper into emotional pain than ever before. Dallas Jenkins has said publicly that this season will challenge not just the characters, but the cast. And no one more than Jonathan. There are scenes coming that will require him to cry, scream, bleed, and ultimately surrender. Not in a dramatic Hollywood kind of way, but in a raw, soul-crushing, deeply spiritual way. The kind of acting that doesn't just hurt changes you. And it's not just the role that's heavy, it's the public pressure. Jonathan knows that millions of people around the world are watching his every expression, hanging on to every word. For many, he's become the face of Jesus. That kind of responsibility is not easy to carry. There's no room for mistakes, no space for a bad day. Every scene must feel sacred, every moment must feel divine. And Jonathan has held himself to that impossible standard for years. But even the strongest man can only carry so much before the weight begins to crush him. That's why Dallas Jenkins's decision to limit Jonathan's involvement after Season 6 makes so much sense. It's not about ending a story, it's about protecting a person. Jenkins understands the emotional damage this role can do, especially when the story becomes darker and more painful. By shifting future projects like The Chosen Adventures into animation, Dallas is offering Jonathan a way to stay involved without sacrificing his mental well-being. It's a thoughtful move, a compassionate one, but it also means that we, the audience, will have to say goodbye to the one person who made this universe feel real. Of course, The Chosen has always been about more than one man. The disciples, the miracles, they all matter. But it was Jonathan's performance that anchored everything. He made Jesus humans, someone who laughed, cried, danced, and suffered. And now, as we approach the darkest scenes of all, the irony is heartbreaking. The actor who gave life to Jesus will begin to fade from the story just as the crucifixion looms. There's another layer to this, one that fans are only just beginning to understand. Jonathan's departure isn't just a career decision, it's personal. This role has transformed his faith. It has deepened his spiritual life, brought him closer to God, and awakened a new purpose. But that kind of transformation also requires distance. Jonathan has said before that playing Jesus makes you confront your own flaws, your own pain, your own fears. And maybe, after 7 seasons, he's ready to return to his own life, to rediscover his identity outside of the role that redefined him. But what comes next? That's the question haunting fans. When Jonathan leaves The Chosen, what will happen to his career? Will audiences be able to see him as anyone other than Jesus? It's a real concern. He's so closely tied to this character that it might be difficult for people to accept him in other roles. And that kind of typecasting can be both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, he'll always be remembered as the face of Jesus in one of the most beloved faith-based series of all time. On the other, it may limit his future opportunities. Yet, Jonathan has never chased fame. He's chased purpose. And maybe that's what will carry him forward once The Chosen ends. The respect he's earned, the hearts he's touched, the lives he's helped change, that's a legacy no typecasting can take away. Still, we can't pretend this transition will be easy. Not for him. Not for us. The thought of watching season 6 and knowing it's the last time we'll see Jonathan's face as Jesus, that's devastating. And it makes every episode of season 5 feel more urgent, more emotional, more precious. We are witnessing the end of something extraordinary and the beginning of something unknown. As The Chosen enters season 5, there is a dark cloud that hangs over every sign because we all know where the story is heading. The road to Golgotha has begun, and Jesus is walking it slowly, step by step, with his disciples still unaware of the weight he carries. But Jonathan Rumi is fully aware. He knows what's coming, and so do we. This is a season that will test everything: the disciples' faith, the loyalty of those closest to Jesus, and most painfully, Jonathan's emotional strength as he prepares to portray one of the most brutal, heart-wrenching stories in all of human history. Season 5 isn't about miracles anymore. It's not about celebrations or callings or even teachings. It's about loss, suffering, silence, betrayal. Jonathan is about to enter the final chapter of Jesus' earthly life, and it's a chapter filled with agony. This season will cover Judas's betrayal in painful detail, the slow, tragic unraveling of trust, and the quiet despair of a man who knows he's about to be betrayed by someone he loves. And Jonathan must show all of it: the confusion, the heartbreak, the love that persists even in the face of complete abandonment. Every glance, every whispered prayer, every tear from Jesus, this season carries the weight of finality. And that pressure is real, not just for us watching, but for Jonathan, who has to feel these emotions in a way most actors will never understand. The scenes leading up to the crucifixion aren't just dramatic, they're sacred. Jonathan must carry the emotional burden of a man preparing to die for the sins of the world. And not just die, but be humiliated, tortured, and nailed to a cross by the very people he came to save. That pain must be etched into every line on Jonathan's face, every movement of his body, every whisper of his voice. But this isn't just difficult emotionally, it's spiritually crushing. Because Jonathan has said before that he sees Jesus not just as a character, but as someone he prays to, someone he believes in, and now he must act out his final moments. He must relive, day after day, the most painful scenes in the Gospels. The agony in Gethsemane, the silence during his trial, the crown of thorns, the blood, the cross. For Jonathan, this is not just storytelling. It's an emotional and spiritual death he must perform, again and again, until it's complete. And the terrifying truth, this might actually hurt him. Not physically, but mentally and spiritually. That's the danger no one talks about. Because when an actor immerses themselves this deeply into a role, especially one with such heavy emotional and religious weight, the lines between reality and performance can blur. We saw it in the past with actors who played dark, tragic characters and walked away shattered. But Jonathan isn't playing a villain. He's playing the most loved, most worshipped, most sorrowed figure in human history. And it's breaking him. This is why Dallas Jenkins has made it clear: Jonathan's time is limited, not because he's not capable, but because no human being should carry this burden forever. Dallas knows that asking Jonathan to continue after the resurrection would be too much. The story of Jesus' physical presence ends at the cross, and so must Jonathan's journey. And while he may continue to lend his voice to animated projects, his emotional and physical presence will be absent. The screen will feel emptier. The spirit of the show will feel altered. And what does this mean for us, the audience? It means that every second Jonathan is on screen in season 5 becomes more precious. Every line he speaks could be the last time we hear Jesus say those words through his voice. Every miracle could be the final one we witness with his hands. It creates a sense of urgency, of quiet panic. We don't want it to end. But we know it must. Season 5 then becomes more than just the next chapter of The Chosen. It becomes a farewell tour, a slow, painful goodbye. It's not just Jesus who's preparing to leave his disciples, it's Jonathan preparing to leave us, and the closer we get to the crucifixion, the more we'll feel it. The dread, the sorrow, the ache of what's coming. Jonathan must embody a man who knows he's going to die and chooses to love anyway. That choice to love in the face of betrayal, to forgive while being nailed to a cross. That's what season 5 is about. And it's also what makes it so terrifying. Because for Jonathan, this means facing emotions that most people run from. He must show compassion for Judas. He must look Peter in the eye after the denial. He must cry out to a silent God from the cross. And he must do it all knowing that the weight of the world, not just in the story, but in reality, is on his shoulders. And even after filming stops, that weight doesn't just disappear, it lingers. That's what Jonathan has confessed in interviews, that sometimes, even weeks later, he feels the emotional exhaustion of these scenes. It doesn't leave him, it doesn't fade. He carries it. Because when you love a character this much, when you've surrendered your entire soul to it too, don't just walk away, you bleed it out. The countdown has begun. We know it. Dallas knows it. And Jonathan, he feels it more than anyone. Are you ready for what's coming? There's a moment in every great story when the heart of it begins to break. For The Chosen, that moment is almost here, and it comes in the form of a kiss. Judas. His name alone sends a chill down the spine of anyone who knows what's coming. But for Jonathan Rumi, it's more than just a betrayal written in scripture. It's a moment that will shatter everything his version of Jesus has built since season 1. The relationships, the love, the sacrifice. Season 5 centers around this unraveling of trust, and Jonathan is at the very center of that collapse. And this time, the pain won't be quiet. It will be loud, devastating, and permanent. Judas isn't just a side character anymore. In season 5, he becomes the fulcrum on which the entire narrative pivots. And Jonathan, as Jesus, must look into the eyes of someone he's loved, taught, and trusted, and know he's been betrayed. It's the ultimate heartbreak. Not because it's unexpected, but because it's intended. Judas doesn't make a mistake. He makes a choice. And Jesus, in all his compassion, chooses to walk into that betrayal willingly. Jonathan must portray a man who is not only aware of his own death, but accepts it because of love. Think about what that does to an actor. He must show strength and sorrow at the same time. He must hold back tears while embracing the very person who destroys him. Jonathan has to bring the kind of emotional complexity that doesn't come from acting school, it comes from the soul. This isn't fake, this isn't scripted rage or rehearsed grief. This is real, human devastation masked by divine peace. And it might be the hardest thing Jonathan has ever done. Dallas Jenkins has said multiple times that the betrayal arc is one of the most important pieces of season 5. It's not just about Judas handing over Jesus to the authorities. It's about how that betrayal tears apart the group, how Peter collapses, how the disciples scatter, how Jesus stands in the center of the storm, knowing everything, and still choosing to love. That's the emotional gravity Jonathan has to bring to the screen. And he has to do it while carrying the immense pressure of what's ahead. Trial, torture, death. The script demands that Jonathan perform scenes that will leave him emotionally destroyed. There will be no victory speeches, no uplifting endings. Not yet. Instead, we'll see Jesus broken, rejected, abandoned, and still forgiving. It's a performance that will test the limits of empathy, endurance, and inner strength. Because portraying Jesus in his final days is not about shouting or miracles, it's about silence, about suffering quietly. And Jonathan has to let that pain sink into every frame without ever letting it break the character's divine resolve. And with the viewers will feel it too. Watching Jonathan share that final meal with Judas, watching him wash the feet of the man who's already made the deal, watching him pray in the garden while his closest friends fall asleep. These are not just moments in a Bible story. They are scenes where the human heart is torn apart. And Jonathan's performance has to carry that heartbreak for the entire audience. It's the kind of acting that doesn't earn awards, but it earns something more sacred: belief. And here's where the real fear sets in. Because as we watch Jesus walk toward his death, we're also watching Jonathan walk toward his final season. Every step closer to the cross is a step closer to goodbye. Every betrayal on screen echoes the growing realization that we'll soon lose this version of Jesus forever. And that's what makes season 5 almost unbearable to think about. But Jonathan has never backed away from this weight. He's embraced it, even as it crushes him. Even as the tears become real and the fatigue sets in. He's spoken openly about how deeply this show has impacted his spirit, how playing Jesus has changed how he sees the world, how he prays, how he lives. And now, as that journey nears its end, there's something almost sacred in the way he chooses to finish it with dignity, surrender, and a love that mirrors the very person he's portraying. The betrayal of Judas won't just destroy the trust between characters. It will break the illusion that this story can go on forever. It will remind us all that even the most beloved characters must face their final act. And Jonathan, who has carried the soul of this series, must now carry its heaviest moment. The betrayal that leads to the cross, the kiss that ends it all. But here's the most powerful part. Jonathan won't let bitterness touch this story. Just like Jesus, he will choose love over anger, peace over vengeance. Even in his final days on screen, he'll offer the audience not just pain, but redemption. And that's what makes this so devastating. Because we know what's coming. We know the pain. We know the ending, but Jonathan makes us feel it anyway. He doesn't flinch, he doesn't break. He bleeds on screen and off. And that's why his absence will be impossible to fill.